Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. Using Nier Automata as a backdrop, let's continue with a series of philosophy videos. And since these are the first few videos, let's focus on some basics. Here I want to talk about just one topic: what is human? And I don't mean what is a human, we all know what that is, but what is the defining characteristic of humanity? Put another way, what is the defining difference between humans and animals? I've looked around the internet a bit, and in most people's analysis of Nier Automata, they say that emotions are what makes a human. So, 2B feels love, so she's human. 9S gets angry, so he's human. A2 misses her friends, so she's human. But I, and many, if not most, other philosophers disagree. To tell the truth, I would usually be on board with the idea of emotions as the highest, greatest indicator, because most video games don't get into philosophical thought. But Nier Automata references it so much, I feel obligated to use it. Not to say that responding to the emotional setups and payoffs in Nier Automata is wrong. That is perfectly a legitimate way to engage with the game. But the game has more to it than just that. And the game rather bluntly brings up philosophers' names, so let's look at philosophers and what their answers to the question, what is human? Aristotle is as good a place to start as any. He said that the defining difference between humans and animals is the ability to reason, and we could end the video right there, to be honest. But we can define reason. Reason, logic, rationality, it all has to do with the power of the human mind to understand and create judgments and conclusions in the pursuit of truth. Artificial intelligence does not understand what it is working with, and it cannot link between cause and effect like the human mind can, so it is far from being able to be called human by this definition. The philosophers I'll talk about in this video all agree that reason is the defining characteristic of humanity. But reason, Aristotle said, is the key to living a happy life, because by using reason to guide how we live, we both exercise independence and we make the choices that favor the greatest good for the greatest number. This is kind of a preview of ethics and politics, which I might talk about in a future video. Next, we can skip ahead to Descartes, first of the modern philosophers. He said the mind was the great differentiator between humans and animals, and that animals were closer to complicated machines going off pre-programmed instinct. I'm sure animal rights folks will not like that statement, but we're here to talk about humankind, and Nier Automata is also here to talk about humankind, so we'll go with that categorization. Descartes believed in the human ability for the mind to overcome the urges of the body, that the mind could be superior, that humans can act rationally. Of all of the named philosophers in Nier Automata, we'll talk about Pascal here, since his thinking is most related to the topic. He used the term thinking reeds to refer to humans, and he said that human thought was the defining attribute that separated us not only from animals, but from everything else in the universe, including the universe itself. And furthermore, the capacity for thought gives humans our unique dignity, and although we may be weak as reeds, we have that dignity. The universe may be bigger and stronger than us, but we can hold the universe in our mind. Thought is our power. It is how we elevate ourselves. Then we have the entire Enlightenment movement with thinkers like Locke and Hume in England, Diderot and Montesquieu in France, Paine and Franklin and Jefferson in America, that said that reason is the true human quality, not emotion, and that through reason we can achieve happiness for all of mankind. I find it very curious that as much as Nier Automata references philosophy, it leaves out a lot of big names, including pretty much everyone I just listed. I have to think that it is because the idea that reason is the defining differentiator between man and animal is so basic and assumed that the game didn't feel the need to address it, but clearly it needs to be addressed, which is why we're making this video. One interesting thing about Nier Automata is how they portray the machines displaying emotions. They are portrayed as looking silly or missing the point. Their emotions are dismissed by 9S, but more importantly by the player as well, and the developer set us up to feel that way. And we know that the machines and androids share core material, So I think we can believe the emotions in the androids as much as we can believe the emotions in the machines. The androids are more advanced, but just because they have facial expressions and voices that can modulate, that does not make those emotions real or as authentic as our emotions. With this in mind, who do I consider the most human in the game according to the importance of reason? I would say Pascal and Adam and Anemone. Their desire to use logic and reasoning to find their way forward, to lead other people and find happiness, is perfectly in line with the thoughts of the philosophers I brought up earlier. Here, let's look at the main characters of Nier Automata and ask, do they display the capacity for reason? And so therefore, can we call them human by our definition here? First is 2B. She is often called a doll by the developers, so that should already give us a big hint, but no, she does not display reason. She is the most like a computer AI, taking in data, taking in the environment, and making the best possible decision with the greatest efficiency. She does not have much agency in making her own decisions. She is beholden not only to her programming, but also to the mission objectives. One of her secret missions is to keep 9S in line, and although we haven't seen every instance of that playing out, it's pretty clear that she has never disobeyed the order or any order. She feels guilt about it and doesn't want to do it, which is what most people latch onto, but she still goes ahead and does it, which is what I feel is key. 2B never considers what would happen if I disobeyed, or is there some way I could stop this? She is trapped in this loop where she suffers, but does not have the power or even the will to get herself out of it. She does not become a philosopher because she can never rise above her mission, rise out of her sadness. For this reason, I don't find 2B a particularly compelling character. She looks cool and she kicks butt, and that's about it. I identify with her about as much as I do a flashy car. After the bunker blows up and she gets the logic virus, she takes her first interesting action, which is to make a choice and give A2 her memories. However, even in this, she does not think beyond that step. She does not consider how a 9S might react to her death. She does not consider cause and effect at all. Her thinking goes ahead to the next step and stops there. She's almost more reactive than proactive. Next, let's think about 9S. While 2B is close to an unreasoning computer, 9S is closer to an unreasoning zealot. 9S is often touted as being curious, but his reaction to the great secret truth about the Yorha and the mission and his true nature is decidedly uncurious. Rather than think it through and make peace with it, he feels threatened. He becomes emotional. He becomes violent. If he cannot have it his preferred way, he will have it no way, and not let anyone else have it either. I hear a lot of people identifying with 9S because of this. You might want to consider therapy to address your anger issues. 9S does not become a philosopher either, because he never goes beyond his inherited traditional worldview. He is propped up by it at first, and when it disappears, he chooses oblivion rather than another worldview. He is inflexible and dogmatic. He is overconfident and thinks he knows everything, while the true philosopher knows that they know very little. And finally, of the main characters, we have A2. She comes the closest to human, but only post-merging with 2B. Separate, they are both dolls, 2B silently suffering but obeying, A2 broken in a way and rebelling but without purpose or direction. Together, however, they take the first steps towards being human. Post-merge, A2 is initially resistant to everything. She rejects the pod, she rejects Pascal's efforts, but she eventually accepts it all, and especially when she is hacking 9S, she begins to wonder and question and reason. Her final line, where she declares the world is beautiful, is key. That must be a direct reference to the ancient idea that philosophy springs from wonder, seeing the world with a child's eyes. A2 has the potential to become a philosopher. She's only starting at it, but that's more than we can say about either 2B or 9S. And in ending E, it is proposed that the three main characters will live again, but I consider that a red herring. The truly interesting part of the ending is where the pods display true reason. They doubt, they question, they wonder, they consider different futures. 2B and 9S begin and end as dolls, destined to only replay the same story over and over as more people play through the game. But in the big picture, Nier Automata never actually gets very philosophical in the sense that it doesn't cover any philosopher in any detail. What it does do is introduce the idea of thinking philosophically, and it shows various characters taking the first steps into that. And so I would say the game is not philosophical in and of itself, but it acts as a launching pad for players to get started, and it lends itself to philosophical readings. Although I was ultimately disappointed playing it, after hearing it was the most philosophical game of all time, Nier Automata is still valuable because video games largely have not touched the world of philosophy, so it's a new avenue to spread that type of thought. It's not saying anything new, but it's saying it in a different than usual form to a potentially all-new audience. Okay, and with that, I think we have established that reason is the basis, one of the bases of philosophy. In future videos, let's use that to look at aspects of Nier Automata through a philosophical viewpoint. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.